Evolutionary.org, episode 662 is coming your way. Today we got an interview with EVO sister, Panda22. So if you come on to Evolutionary forums, on the top right, you do a search. You search for her name. You put in Panda, like the bear, Panda bear, and then the number 22, and you'll see her profile pop up and her posts pop up. Now, in her posts, in her signature, you can go in there and you can actually take a look at her log. And her log is fantastic. It's called Female Recomp and Performance Cycle Log, HGH, Retitride, Anavar, sponsored by R&D Pharma. And it's an excellent log that she started at the beginning of the year. And really, she is an absolute chiseled and gifted physical uh, person, and she's extremely mentally and physically very gifted. And we're going to really pick her brain on this one. This is going to be a great episode for all you out there to really learn about what makes women like Panda go and how she is so damn talented. So we're gonna get right into it. So Panda, before we introduce you, I just want to remind everyone we are on Apple, we are on Spotify. Make sure you smash the like button on all these podcasts, and we want to continue to bring you these podcasts going forward. So Panda, thanks for joining us this evening. How you doing?
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super grateful to be here and give back to this community in what feels like just a little way compared to what I see going on in the forum. So I'm very excited to share my training journey and my how I got here today. It feels a little bit unusual to kind of share that with you guys, but hopefully it's a little bit interesting and everyone can get something out of it.
One of the things we do with these shows, Panda, is make sure that we welcome the guest on. And as you know from talking to you in the pre-show, by sharing your experiences, by sharing your journey, talking a little bit about yourself, you're, as you just said, putting back somewhat into the community, but you're also helping thousands, hopefully hundreds of thousands of listeners across different channels that we're on and social media and so on and so forth with snippets of information. Although they might be specific to you, they should be informative and helpful for other people. We can't do these shows, as Steve just referred to, without having guests like yourself come on, and especially as we've done in recent shows with our Australian members coming on late at night. So we want to make sure that we thank you for coming on behalf of myself, Stevesmi, the bosses, the moderators, and the listeners, and even the members of the forum. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come on and tell us a little bit about your journey and hopefully inform listeners in ways that will be useful to them as well. Thank you again.
Thank you. So a little bit about my background. I'll just jump straight
Yes.
into that.
Yes,
I
please.
did say in the forum, I've done sport essentially my whole life. When I say that, though, what might be a little bit surprising is I actually started out with ballet. So I did that from maybe 3 years old is when I started. And I did that for about 19 years. And then tried on and off different sports alongside that and different ways to keep fit because it's a pretty intense style of training and discipline and quite specific. And for anyone who has seen photos of me on the log, you'll notice that I don't really have a body type that lends itself to ballet. So while I did love it and do it for an incredibly long time, it unfortunately wasn't something I could continue going with or really get a lot of fulfillment out, which is what really led into a change of training for me. So after I finished ballet and I taught for a little while as well, I got pretty lost, I think. I tried the gym a couple of times, just joined like a local gym and really didn't have a lot of direction in going into the gym and didn't understand exactly what I was doing. So I was kind of going in there and just playing with different weights, tried some kettlebell classes out, cardio, the usual kind of stuff, but it really didn't stick because I just, not so much a motivation issue, but I really just didn't have that direction or understanding what I wanted to achieve from it. And eventually I found my way into doing jujitsu. A friend invited me along, but I did know about it for quite a while. And it's for anyone who has given it a go before, it's pretty addictive. And I took to it straight away. So I started that in my mid 20s and it's been 10 years plus now. So I've been at it a really long time. And I've been really fortunate with that training that, with the exception of my hip injury, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later, I haven't suffered any injuries that have taken me away from time on the mats and time in training there. So
So
that's
talk.
pretty much
Yeah, I
sports.
was gonna say, tell us a little bit about the jiu-jitsu. What does that entail? When tell us the first time you walked in there, what were you expecting, and what was it? Are you sparring against other people? Are you sparring against, you know, you know, whatever? How what was that like the first time you walked in there? And
I'm going to ask Steve, what was it? Because we find certain sports that we like and we want to do and we want to get good at. So, what was it about BJJ that made you go, "This is what I like. This is what I'm going to stick with"?
Yeah, great question. And it is an odd one, I think, especially for women, and we're pretty underrepresented in the sport. I think women make up less than 20% overall of the sport, and then that number obviously diminishes once you get into black belt level as well. But it's a pretty confronting room to walk into, and it is as a sport, it's very confronting as well. Like it's very physical. You have people not just up in your space, but touching you, on top of you, fighting you, except for striking, of course, is not allowed. But it is for a lot of people as well. It's the first time you really experience some kind of violent thing. So you go through quite a roller coaster of emotions and reactions that you're not maybe necessarily in control of, how your brain kind of freaks out the first time and everything there. I think what I loved about it was walking in there, everyone similar to the gym environment. Everyone was so welcoming, so nice, so lovely. And then you're doing this really intense style of training, really physical, and it is pretty violent and it's aggressive. But on the flip side, everyone's got your best intentions. Everyone wants to keep you safe. No one really wants to hurt you. So I got a lot of gratification out of not just the environment, but the actual challenge of grappling itself and the challenge of having to deal with that problem that's in front of you. You kind of can't run away from it. You have to address what's in front of you.
And is it when you first start out, are you actually you said you can't strike, so like what are you doing with the other person? Are you like striking their padding, or are you is it kind of touching someone in this particular spot, or are you on the ground wrestling with them? How do you start out in jiu-jitsu as a newbie for people who want to maybe get into it? What should they expect to deal with that first month?
There's two ways it generally starts out. When you start a grappling round, so when it's you and one other person grappling or having a sparring match, you either start standing and someone has to initiate a takedown, and then the grappling continues on the ground, and you're rolling until either the end of the timed round. Usually it's about 5 minutes in training that you're grappling for each round, or it ends when you tap someone out, and then you would usually reset and restart the grappling round. Commonly, though, and for a lot of new people, you would advise them just to start sitting down, because a takedown is pretty hard to initiate and there's a lot to learn in it. You need to know how to break fall safely because you can get hurt. A lot of wrestlers out there will probably be able to speak to that. It's a lot of adrenaline starting standing up as well, and takes a lot out of your gas tank, and especially for jiu-jitsu where 90% of the fight is grappling on the ground, you don't really want to spend a lot of your time in stand up.
Now, transition into your hip issues. Did that come from the ballet, or did that come from the jiu-jitsu, or did that come from lifting? How did that all start? Or is it something you think that's genetic? I know, like with certain people, they're more prone to hip issues. Other people are more prone to knees.
Yeah,
Other people, like me, are more prone to shoulders. Tell us about that.
something. Sorry, Steve, just to interrupt. And I've talked to Panda about this in the pre-show, and this is for the listeners. Osteoarthritis, and specifically around the hip, from postmenopausal women is not unusual. It's to do with connected to diet and obviously aging. So, as well as that, I want to discuss with Panda the recovery. So, talk about what made it happen and then dealing with it, how long for post injury, post operation, and recovery. Because I think that whole story doesn't have to be this specific injury, but this whole process of recovering from it will be probably the most informative. But obviously, talk about your own particular journey.
Yeah, yeah. It was a really long road for me as well. And I definitely, as you said, with the osteoarthritis and things, I had a lot of concerns about over the years that I suffered from this injury, what the impacts would be over the time having addressed it. And then Less so now, as I know the results of having had the surgery, but I was at the time concerned about what does my future look like as far as aging. And when I get to an age where arthritis is kind of more common or more prevalent to start coming in, how would that affect my hip? But thankfully, eventually I was able to have surgery and correct it, and it turned out not to be arthritic, which was a concern, but thankfully it wasn't. So I did the injury about 12 years ago. Um, and I was predispositioned to injure myself. And then having done sports like ballet, where there's high flexion and movement through the hip at that range, even more a greater chance that you would have that injury as well. So what happened was I had an impingement, which means the head of my femur, the bone wasn't quite the correct shape. It kind of had almost like a bone growth, so it didn't sit nicely in the hip. And because of that, and the sports I was doing, it tore the labrum from the bone, and the labrum is the part that lines the hip bone to make sure that the joint and the rotation can all happen smoothly. So after I did that, I lost a lot of range of movement through my leg. I really couldn't, and I was quite literally locked out. I couldn't move that leg beyond 90 degrees. So I had tried the gym after, as I said, I'd stopped the ballet and I didn't really know quite what I wanted to do yet when I tried the gym. I got some coaching and had a good sports doctor, etc., help me out. When I would try to squat or something, I had to have a bench underneath me because I couldn't physically go below 90, and if something happened and I did, I wouldn't be able to get myself back up. So it wasn't amazing as far as being able to work out and really not have that full range of movement. Um, and when I did the injury about 12 years ago, I guess it was a known injury in common, but there wasn't a surgery for it at the time. So my options were really just to keep treating it conservatively and try and manage it myself. Or I was at one stage offered exploratory surgery, which in my 20s I didn't think was a really good idea. I didn't want to take the risk of surgery at all if there was no outcome that was going to be offered to me, and they really didn't know what they was going to do. So I kept going conservatively, having treatment when I needed it, and I got really, really good at managing it. It was painful, so I was in pain every day. It was just more of a matter of how much pain. And then trying to do jiu-jitsu as well. There is a lot of flexion through there. So trying to really, I guess, modify my style of training around what I was able to do and where it limited me.
So can I just stop you for a second? And I'm just thinking of generalized injuries here, Steve. A lot of us will ignore pain and ignore discomfort. We'll adapt our training to get round issues, etc., etc. But at some point, as per what Panda's just said, and again, this is for the listeners, we need to look at the potential for surgery. We need to look at the potential for things to happen, whether you end up with the hip joint being replaced or whatever else. So you're spending that period of adaptation. At some point, I can imagine for you, Panda, the pain, discomfort, and just trying to fucking cope gets so crazy that surgery becomes the only option. So how long was it between sort of diagnosis and surgery? And did you actually find someone who knew what the fuck they were doing? And what form did the surgery actually take?
Yeah, so it was 12 years, which was a really long time. And I guess over that period of time being such a long time, as you said, we ignore pain and we make excuses and we keep training through. I'd not realized how bad it really was. I guess, lied to myself enough and I didn't want to stop myself from doing anything, stop myself from training, stop myself from achieving things that are important to me. So I didn't ever want to
So
use it as
let me
an
just ask you
excuse.
one more question. And then this is actually kind of important as well. For those of you that might have surgery, we're doing I'm coming from the same place as you are. I'm trying to do this thing. I don't want to stop doing this thing. There's actually an argument to be made that by continuing to train, although arguably you could be making the injury worse, you're also maintaining a level of muscle tone. And right the way up to the surgery, and then obviously the rehab, enables you to recover that much quicker and that much better than babying the injury and not doing anything with the joint and not exercising. So I'm going to ask you about that after we get past the surgery, the recovery process, and whether or not continuing to train actually helped you with the recovery process as well. Because again, that might be useful.
Cool. Yeah. So the surgery I had just in end of June last year. I found a good surgeon who does these more frequently than I'd love to know about. Um, and I'd found them and knew I was going to do it, but at the time there was quite a long wait list to get on there as well. And I went public in the Australian health system, which meant it was free for me, but it did mean I have to wait a little longer because it wasn't an urgent surgery by their categorization. And I knew I was going to go for my black belt as well. So I wanted to make sure that I had gotten my black belt first, knowing that there would be some time out to recover. And then I signed up and said, put me on the list. I'm ready to have the surgery.
Well, that's good because in America something like that would have cost you like 150
Oh
grand or
Christ, yeah.
something, or 250,000. So that's good that at
The
least it
girlfriend
was
has
free.
the girlfriend as is Steve had a hip, the actual hip top of the hip bone replaced, and I think she went private. And I'm going to say that was 17,000 UK, but it'd be way more in the US.
Yeah.
What form pan did the surgery actually take? What, because you mentioned the labrum being torn, but obviously
Mhm.
this is now a long term tear with you managing it for 10 years. So you've got someone who knows what they're doing. You're on the list. What form did the surgery actually take? What did they do? Did they scrape? Did they
Yeah.
clean? Did they? Yeah.
So it was full general anesthetic, so I was completely out. They put your leg in traction, so it's not quite like they dislocate it, but they have to put enough room into the joint that they can get in and do the work. So they really stretch it out. And what they do was arthroscopic, thankfully. So I've just got four small kind of puncture looking scars where they went in, they go in with camera and tools through those little holes there. So what they had to do, they explained it to me as if for the labrum, they have to put hooks, like picture hooks, almost kind of style thing, into the hip bone itself, and then they stitch the labrum back onto that. So it's kind of like they're hanging it back onto the bone.
Mm.
Jeez.
Yeah.
How long were
Steve,
you?
sorry, Steve. I'm just going to say, I know sometimes they show you after the operation. I'm not sure I'd want to fucking look. I'm just like,
Yeah, it's
I'll be alone,
scary.
you guys. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Please, I'll take it from you guys. You know what you're doing. I don't need to see what the fuck
Yeah.
you've done. It's going to freak you out. What about post
Yeah.
injury?
Yeah.
Like I
How
said,
long did it take for you? Were you not able to walk for a certain amount of time? Did you have to stay in bed? How did that work afterwards?
Yeah, much longer than I wanted, and maybe much longer than I had listened to them saying. I thought I'd be back training within 3 months, and it was for jujitsu, it was 6 months, which out of that style of training is a really, really long time. It was a big hill to climb back, but I was on post-op, I was on rest for 3 weeks. I had 3 weeks off work. And I was pretty much just able to go from the couch, from the bed to the couch. That was it. And then I was on crutches for a total of 10 weeks. And then it was a slow build up from there.
let me ask you a question because again, I'm thinking of the girlfriend's hip operation. And again, you come from a sporty background, so Carolyn was able to maintain some mobility right up to the operation, and they encouraged her to walk literally the 24 hours, 48 hours after the operation. When she went back up, I think it was 12 weeks, 16 weeks post op, she was the only one that walked into the checkup when everybody else was still on um, uh, sticks or some sort of mobility tool or still in chairs. So, did your sporting and active background help you recover quicker, perhaps, than other people that have had a similar operation, maintain a certain level of muscle? Or was it simply a case of the same length of time that most people take to recover?
No, it drastically helped me. It drastically helped me. So, with the type of the surgery it was and the risk of re-tear, I couldn't walk. I had to stay off the joint just to allow it time to attach correctly, which wasn't a problem. But before I went to surgery, went in for the date, I'd been given, I found a physio and did a lot of prehab exercises, which was really, really beneficial. And all the gym and sporting I'd done up until that time meant I was really stable and really supported in the rest of my body to manage the injury. But I definitely did a lot of work in the prehab and found a really good physio that understood what where I was at as far as clamshells kind of wasn't it. I was much stronger and more able than that. So you could give me clamshells and I could do them forever. Would that really be beneficial to me because it's a general exercise? Or he managed to find things that were more targeted and harder and really helped work with where I was at as far as my strength and ability going into this.
Something else I want to touch upon before we move on, and again, this might be beneficial for people listening. There's an argument to be made, Steve, for a mental approach, how we perceive the injury and how we respond to the injury. So, to put it crudely, some people think they're fucked and they will stay fucked, vis-a-vis the people that were still in chairs because people are babying them at home, or because it can be immensely uncomfortable post-operation, but you almost have to sort of grind your way through the pain to get to the point where you recover. So your mental approach, do you think a little bit of your, again, it's come from your sporting background, but the idea of challenging yourself and that sort of mental discipline has enabled your recovery as much as the physical stuff that you've done and the sporting background, again, that you've had for years, versus, say, for example, someone else going, do you know what, my hip's fucked, I'm going to be fucked for life, and constantly on a walker, constantly using sticks for the rest of their life because they had a hip issue X, Y, 10 years ago, whatever. So what about that as a thought process? Did the mental approach, maybe that mental discipline, help you with your recovery?
Yeah, I agree that it definitely did. In two ways, in the way that it allowed me to keep training and achieving everything I did in spite of being held back by it. And then, understanding that I didn't really realize until I'm where I'm at now, as far as what I'm able to do and the mobility I have, I didn't realize how bad it was, because I just persevered anyway. And then I really feel I gave it, as far as the surgery went, I gave it the respect it deserved. So I treated it almost like a camp that I was training for. I was training to go into the surgery, wanting the best possible outcome. And
Yep.
I knew before I went into this, I had a plan of how I was going to rehab, how I was going to get back, where I wanted to be post-op as well, and mentally really had that image in my mind of, if I'm going to do this, I'm doing it right and all the way.
So
I'm
tell
just
us,
thinking,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, sorry. One of the things you've just said actually kind of keys in for this particular thought process where you go, that training camp idea, I know it's going to take me 12 weeks. I know that if I do these things every single day, the way that I'm supposed to do for 12 weeks, I will recover. Versus, I'm in pain, it hurts, I won't do this today, I'll leave it to tomorrow, and so on and so forth. I do like the idea of that training camp every single day when Panda got up to the when she went to bed. What could she do that day to help with the recovery and focusing it, like you're getting ready for competition,
Yeah.
like you're getting ready for training camp, as you say?
So let's
Yeah,
move.
yeah. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
knew I'd take a bit of a back step as far as muscle mass and maybe some strength as well. So I definitely pushed beyond my limits as far as I wanted to see how far I could take my strength and my body, knowing that I'd take a back step. But that meant when I was able to train again, it wasn't as big as back step as it would have been if I just continued as I was and went into it.
So let's touch on your training while we're on this subject and get a little bit into how you stay in shape and your BJJ and everything. So on your log, you talk about your gym training is 4 days a week. You talk about Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday. You're also throwing in the martial arts. You have, it says BJJ 3 by 90-minute sessions per week. So are you incorporating the gym training 4 days a week and then the BJJ on the days you're not gym training, or are you taking tell us about your week. Is there any rest days? And on your rest days, are you still doing cardio? So tell us about your typical week training today. Because
I said in the pre-show, sorry, Pando, the other thing, of course, is you are arguably mixing two disciplines. So I think there's a thing to be said for how do you cope with, or how do you structure what you
yeah.
do
Well,
to
let's start with
enable
how
you to
she,
cope with
yeah.
these two disciplines?
Let's
Yeah,
start with
yeah.
what she's doing, and then she can touch on that as well. And then also, just so the listeners out there who don't know what Panda looks like, she's chiseled, she's absolutely ripped. So if you go check out her log, you'll see her pictures. I mean, we're talking about 4 pack, 6 pack, 8 pack abs, absolutely ripped. So it's not by accident. The hours she puts into the gym every week is absolutely fascinating. So talk about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So I do have two rest days. I rest on a Monday and a Friday. Tuesday is upper body day, and then Tuesday night is jiu-jitsu. Wednesday is lower body. And then Wednesday night, I just kind of play around whether I want to do a jiu-jitsu session or just go for a walk. Thursday is a mix. So I do a lot of landmine on a Thursday, which is something I've only recently been introduced to at the gym and I've become a little bit obsessed with. And I do a mix of upper and lower body, but really with a strong focus on that, on the explosive and dynamic movements, which I think translate well to the jiu-jitsu. Friday's a rest day, as I said, Saturday jiu-jitsu only, and then Sunday gym only.
So, how many hours a day on average are you doing when you do these between the both training sessions when you do two a days and stuff? How many hours on those? What's the range on those two a day days? Where are you? Is it 2 hours, 3 hours total?
Uh, so no more than 45 minutes in the gym at any given time, and then 90 minutes on the jiu-jitsu. In the jiu-jitsu, in the weekday classes, half an hour or 45 minutes of that class is warm-up technique
Yeah.
stuff. So it's movement, but it's not intense. And then the other 45 minutes, that's the rounds, more intensive training, the grappling.
Yeah. That see, like my when I was an endurance athlete, I do weight training 3 or 4 times a week, and then I do the cardio 3 to 4 times a week. It was absolutely insane. Looking back, it's just like insane. And it reflected in my conditioning. Like I was able to run a mile in like four and a half
I'm the
minutes, you
same as
know?
you, Steve. When I look back at some of the shit I was used to, the sheer volume of running to work, going to the gym, running half 10Ks at the weekend, I'm like, how the fuck did I find the time and how was I
Yeah.
able to do
Well,
that?
it's
But you
amazing
do
that
it. You do it. Yeah.
so today we have access to great tools that we didn't have
Yes.
back then. So talk about the tools that you have. Why don't we start with the growth hormone? How does the growth hormone help you recover? And what is it? What have you noticed? When did you start doing growth hormone? How old were you? Maybe talk about that, or how long have you been doing it? Because a lot of women out there don't know about growth hormone. They don't know how beneficial growth hormone could be for them. So talk about that.
Yeah, I'm actually relatively new to it. I'm only on my third week of growth hormone. And the intent of switching to that was I had pre and post-op used BPC, TB, and on a couple of occasions the CJC. So that I think it's called the
Yep.
Wolverine stack.
Yes. Yep.
Um, and then knowing the kind of training I'm doing, my longevity goals, and then a little bit of hair, skin, and nails, of course, in there too. Um, HGH just made sense in having that lower dose, just meaning that I knew it would help me with my recovery just to be able to keep going unimpeded, and give me those benefits as well that are a little bit probably aggressive is not the right word, but a little bit stronger than the BPC TB combo.
Yeah. I mean, look, we all, especially if we take our shit seriously, are pushing our bodies. So the idea that we don't want any more injuries, you don't want any more operations, so you want to be able to recover and you won't be able to get back into the gym and still kick ass and
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
mat you still want to kick ass. So yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And so with the HGH, what has been the drastic differences? It's only been
Mm.
3 weeks.
Yeah,
Everyone
what have you
says,
noticed?
yeah, everyone says growth hormone, you have to run it for months. And I'm telling you, it's just not true because a lot of times you'll run it and you'll notice instantly something happened. Did you notice that or not really?
A couple of things have kicked in, and because I'd heard the same thing that a lot of people felt they hadn't had any kind of benefit for it for weeks. I was questioning, is it in my head? Am I getting excited or is this real? But I've come to the conclusion it is real. The first is my sleep has improved so
Hmm.
much, which I talk about probably relentlessly in my logging update is how good my sleep is. Even if I'm waking up during the night, even if I'm not quite getting the amount of hours I'd strive for, I'm still waking up relaxed, refreshed, with an ease of waking up as well, which I haven't always experienced. Sometimes it's a bit hard to wake up, but it's definitely been all round easier. And the other thing I think I've started noticing is almost a bit more of a fullness in my muscles. If I were to touch them, even on days that I haven't been training, it feels like there's almost a pump still there.
Hmm.
Whereas before, I think, you get that nice pump after training and then that kind of subsides. It's almost like it's still hanging around.
And then the Retruditride, which I hate the name, by the way. I can't wait till Eli Lilly brands it and they change the name because I hate that fucking name. I hate pronouncing
It's
it.
gonna be easier,
Yeah,
yeah.
everybody gives us shit about the way we pronounce it. Who cares? It's gonna be renamed anyway. But tell us about that. When did you start that, and what did you notice with the Retta? It says you're doing 1 milligram weekly. Is that still what you're on?
Yeah, so this is my third week and I'm on the 1 milligram still, and I'm planning to go up to 2 milligrams next week. So far, I haven't had any appetite loss as such, but definitely I eat and I'm finished eating. I have no desire to continue eating,
Yeah.
and I pre-make my meals. So once it's done, and I'm not thinking about eating again. But I'm also not put off food either. So that's been pretty good. And I'm down 2 kilograms so far on it.
Are you planning on how long are you planning to stay on it? Is this something where you're gonna kind of pyramid it up and see what happens and play it by ear? Is it something you plan on being on for the long term?
At this stage, it'll just be the 12 weeks, and I'll see where my recomposition kind of comes in at. For me personally, I'm targeting a little bit of body fat. I do retain more of my body fat in my lower legs, and then on top of that, having not been able to work them properly for years, the
Yeah.
composition's just not there where I want it to be. So that's my main goal of
Huh.
it. And then I think I need to dive in a little bit more and understand what would be the benefit for me and what I want to achieve in my training if I were to stay on a low dose ongoing. So I
Yeah.
haven't come to that conclusion yet.
It'll be interesting to see the rebound effect when you do come off after 12 weeks because a lot of people say, hey, the appetite really surges back. So a lot of people choose just to stay on a low dose long term. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But you are young, so it'll be something to kind of experiment with. And then same question on the HGH before we move on to Anavar. HGH, is that something that you're planning on doing a certain amount of time and then stopping? Or are you planning on maybe playing around with it and using it here and there long term?
At this stage, it'll be long term. So I'll just continue on the dose that on now. I don't plan to go up any further. I'm at 3 IU in the evenings.
Oh wow,
And I'll just keep that going.
that's a strong dose.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
I think dose dependent in terms of the side effects, and we quite often get people to back off of half an IU or an IU, and some of those side effects
yeah.
disappear. But you seem to be doing very well on it.
Yeah, what I
So,
noticed is the Australians run growth hormone a lot higher than the Americans. Is there any
mm,
particular theory that you have why that is?
Wow, maybe the outdoor lifestyle. I think I don't know how I could
Um,
relate that back,
it's
but
something weird with the body. Like I swear, because it's so weird. Because Americans at 3 IU's, we'd be like complaining about carpal tunnel and all these side effects. And
do you
Australians,
think, Steve, because we've discussed this before, that the
no, I was asking
predisposition
her
for
just to see
I'm
what
just
she thought.
so I'm
Yeah,
just thinking about the body
yeah.
fat thing. Most of our Australian members, including the um, sorry, who we're talking to today, you have to forgive my memory,
Panda.
um,
Yeah,
yeah, Panda, are leaner. So the argument then
yeah.
becomes
That
if a
could be.
person was leaner, the response might be better than if a person's carrying a higher
It
percentage
could
of
be.
body
Yeah.
fat. Yeah, I'm just thinking that.
Anavar.
The other
Let's.
thing, yeah, Anavar, sorry, because you're actually running it slightly higher than we would normally see with female athletes at 10 milligrams. And it's also that combination with the other two products, the retatrutide and the HGH. So what's been your experience to date and what made you choose 10 milligrams?
sure. So I'm not running it yet. The plan is to bring it in for the final 6 week of the 12-week
Yeah, so,
cycle.
yeah, yeah.
I have run it before though, and it did start on a 5 milligram dose, which I tolerated really well, and went up to the 10. I didn't see any need to go beyond 10, and I didn't want to take any risks from there. I ran it for 8 weeks and stopped. Took bloods before and after. All my bloods came back really well, and I had no sides, no issues, no like fear of virilization or anything like that either. So, um,
So did I miss? Did I miss? Did you mention? Was this your first time using Anavar, or have you ran it previous?
Yeah, run,
so
run
I've
before,
run it
yeah.
previously, and I've not restarted it yet.
Okay, so what was your opinion on Anavar then, on your experience with it? Is it something you'd recommend for other women? Did you have a good experience with it? What do you think about it?
I really enjoyed it and I found it pretty good. I was very nervous going into it, so I did a lot of research into the forums specifically female forums as well, which I think is really important as far as Anavar goes and the effects and the virilization and the different risks we have with our body and taking it. So I wanted to understand that a bit better before I pulled the trigger on it.
And you didn't have
I think
any of those issues.
None,
Okay,
nothing,
good.
no.
I'm just going to
Yeah.
touch on that for a second, Steve, and I'm glad you did the research you said specifically on the female forums. I don't doubt for a second, in the same way that we will have guys that will push the envelope, if it was an all male forum, there's always going to be ladies, females, that will push the envelope on female forums. And what you really want, as I said at the beginning of the show and in the pre show, we want a more generic, if you like, or generalized approach to what's the best dose for a woman to take, what to look out for, what are the issues with side effects. And in something that we talk about on these shows, and I'm guessing Panda is a great example of that, being very self-aware of how you're responding, the potential for those things to occur. And something we discuss on other shows, Steve, not getting fixated on having to stay on a certain dose. You can back the fuck off. You can take things down to 5 milligrams
I
or
hear you.
less
Yeah.
if you absolutely have to. Yeah. So you've listed some supplements here, and it's not the world's longest list because we've had uh, posts recently and threads recently and shows like the one we're doing today where the person's taking sometimes 20 or more supplements. What do you get from some of these supplements? I'll list a couple right now for you. Your magnesium glycinates, lysine, fish oil, and so on. So, I mean, again, I noticed something here as well, which I kind of like. And again, this is more beneficial for women generally. You're having a vitamin B12 injection every 2 months. I think the standard is around every 3 months, rather than some bodybuilders would dose this a lot more frequently, thinking of different things they're going to get from it. So talk about the reason for taking some of the supplements and the effects it has on you, whether it's recovery, athleticism, the ability to fight well, and so on.
Sure. So the oral supplements that I take, the intent behind them is what I need as far as supporting my health for the jiu-jitsu training, which does take its toll on joints, and the gym training as well, which I'm now doing. And then the B12 is something I've always lacked in my body. I can't make it myself very well. I don't have a good production. So I've been on injectable B12 for, I think, oh, maybe I was 20 when I first started that. So a pretty much a lifetime. And I can sense in my body when it's gone down and I need to have a top up. So if I keep it at every two
Yes,
months, I'm just
yes.
slightly ahead of that dip. Yeah.
I've noticed that with women again that have been taking the vitamin B12, and I'm thinking again of Carolyn, you will have how you feel perky and picked up, etc., post injection. And then by the time 12 week comes round again, you kind of sort of become lethargic or, for want of a better phrase, start to feel old and so on and so forth. And it's almost like a pick you up, Steve. So you
Mm.
having it from the age of 20 is actually kind of relatively early. But again, that might
Yeah.
just be because you're pushing off athletically.
Do you
Yeah,
recommend with the B12 injectable B12 or is the oral version okay? Because I've heard mixed things from people out there over the years.
Yeah, I think it really depends on what your personal need for it is. For me, because I don't have that natural ability to make and retain the production, taking orals won't do anything. My body can't do anything with it, so I have to have the injectables. And then the medical advice I was given is if you
Mm.
don't need it, if you're able to produce and retain your own oral supplements would be just fine. Um, that being said, the injection does give you a pick me up, a bit of a perk. But if you have a good amount in your body and you're able to retain that, you probably wouldn't notice that
Okay.
boost very much. Wouldn't do a
Why
lot
why
for
why do you think you have B12 issues? Is that something that's from your childhood? Did you ever find out why, or is it just bad luck?
Yeah, it's called pernicious anemia, which
Ah,
yeah, what it means is it's a genetic thing. So I think it runs on my grandmother's side of the family. Pernicious anemia means that I don't produce or retain B12, which is a really important component in absorbing iron and circulating iron through the body. So that's where the anemia comes into it. So without the B12, then your iron takes a hit.
gotcha. So let's talk about nutrition a little bit. You
yeah.
do list, your macros, your calories, protein, carbs, fats. you hug a little bit. The carbs around 38, 31 on the protein, fats are at 29%. Touch upon more what kind of foods that you're eating and what's your timing. Nutrition timing is so important. I'll give you an example. I'm going to work out today at 12 o'clock, right?
Right,
And
right.
I'm going to work in the morning and I'm going to go. If I were to have a big meal, at 11
Mm,
o'clock, then go work
mm.
out the type of workouts that I do, it's not going to end well for me. I'm going to be throwing up. So,
I'm also thinking of Panda doing two sports in one day,
exactly,
and
yeah.
even if yeah, exactly that. How do you
So,
manage the energy with
So
your
so
food?
talk about your day on your days where you're doing the two a days, like the Tuesday, for example. What would
Mm, mm.
be your meals and how would you time them around your workouts? Because I imagine with the BJJ, it's a
Yes,
intense cardio, and
I'd
if you
be
eat,
tired, Steve. I'd be tired. Well, I might not even
it's not
want
about
to
being
eat from that
tired. It's about
time.
if you eat the wrong thing, you're going to be
Yeah,
sluggish and slow. So,
yes.
so touch upon that.
Mm,
Yeah, if you're not fueled, and it's not only that you're so sluggish and slow, but having someone on top of you actively trying to pin you down and hurt you, and you're tired and can't get them off is a nightmare. So you definitely being fueled is really important going into that. I actually intermittent fast. Uh, it took me a lot of years to figure out what was right for my body. I know it's a bit of a controversial or divisive way of eating, but as far as my gut health goes, it's the only thing that really stops my gut being reactive.
mm, mm.
Um,
So
so I,
Yeah. Sorry.
tell us about the time
What-
restricted eating. I'm a big advocate for
what-
it, by the way. Some people are not. I mean, at the end of the day, that's just how human beings are supposed to eat, but that's a topic for another day. But with the time restricted eating, what's your window looking like with that? And
yeah, so first meal is 11 a.m. So even though I've trained, say, 6:30 in the morning, I don't eat until 11 a.m. Second meal is 2 p.m. If I'm training jiu-jitsu in the evening, I'm usually not home until around 8 p.m. And then that's when I have my last meal, which is a smoothie. So it's much lighter on, just a protein-based smoothie. So my heavy kind of carb and high protein, but I do have protein in the smoothie in the evening. But the heavier carb one is immediately after, sorry, my first meal, which is 11 a.m., the oats, and then the rice chicken combo in the afternoon.
Have you done any experimenting with different foods to get a sense of where you were energy and recovery wise? And is there anything that stood out for you that has helped
yeah.
you
So yeah,
specifically
so
and might
so
help the
on that,
listeners? Yeah.
let's go through the proteins, carbs, and fats. What are your top protein picks? What are your top carb picks? And what are your top fats pick that the foods that pandas typically eating every day? Because I'm assuming you're not eating eucalyptus leaves, right? As a panda? Ha ha ha.
I don't know if you know much about that, but it gives you, well, it doesn't give you, but it gives the koalas a stoned effect. So it's not
Oh,
really,
okay.
yeah,
And
makes them
their breath
stoned.
smells amazing, Steve.
I don't know if it'd have the same effect on you if you tried it, but yeah. So protein wise, it's the chicken at this stage. I have played around with my diet a lot over the years. I tried not completely vegan, but a closer to plant-based diet for a period of time, which was I actually found really good on my gut. The only problem is trying to get the volume in to meet the macros is a little bit harder. Um, and then switching it up to where I am now, it's always been a fasted thing, except for in my younger years when you just kind of doing whatever and it really has no effect on you. As soon as I grew up and your gut and your fat kicks in, that all went away. But I've found what's best for me is having that lighter meal in the evening. It's easier to sleep, easier to get in, especially always having trained jiu-jitsu for 10 plus years now. It's a late night, so coming home and the thought of having a sit down meal is just unappealing. So a smoothie is the way to go there.
Okay. And then in terms of plant-based dieting, what are some of your favorite vegetables and fruits overall, or you just throw them in a smoothie?
No, so a lot of the time there it was a lot of still rice and quinoa. I think that's a staple there. It was a lot of tofu, edamame, lots of vegetables as well, spinach, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. So a pretty rich mix of foods there, but a lot of it was kind of soy and bean based. Black beans is another strong one in there as well.
And then you're okay with digesting the black beans, or do you have to take like a digestive enzyme? Because I didn't see
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
it wasn't great. So eventually I've stepped away from that and found the benefit in not eating it. But
Okay.
that kind of crept up on me. So at first it was all right. I didn't really have an issue tolerating it, but over time I think eating it consistently became a bit of a gut issue. So I stopped that.
What about red
I'm just
meat? I
thinking.
know a
So
lot of the
yeah, I'm just going to
Australians.
ask you because you're actually you mentioned earlier on that you've gone to as high as the black belt in BJJ, so you're elite level. And one of the
Mhm.
things that we look at both with recovery, but also how elite level athletes perform on certain foods. And you've just said the fasting. You've talked about not being able to digest a heavy meal when you come home. So it's that idea that you over this time, Panda would have learned what works for her to get the best out of her body. So again, listeners, if you're listening, you need to be able to know these things, especially when you're at elite level, to give yourself that elite
Yeah.
level
So
performance.
Mobster brings up a good point. Talk about to the women out there who are trying to find themselves, because we see this in men and we see this in women who really struggle at figuring out diet. How did you figure out time restricted eating? Was it someone who told you about it? Was it from reading? Was it from a YouTube video or Facebook or something like that? Or was it just something that you just experiment with on your own? And what would be some advice for women out there who are trying to find what works for them in terms of diet? It's we're bombarded with marketing and all this stuff all the time. There's fast food joints in every corner, and people just don't understand how important nutrition is and don't really know how to do it. So, what would be your advice for that?
Yeah, so I naturally found my way to intermittent fasting when I was having gut issues and started playing around with the FODMAP diet. I'm not sure if you've heard of that before.
Oh yeah, I'm a
Um,
big advocate of it. Absolutely, I follow that as well.
yeah, yeah. So
We
that
would
started
yeah
me
we,
steering.
me and you would have no problems like grocery shopping together. You know.
It does make it easy and makes it much healthier, which is a nice side effect of that. So I have always played around with refining foods based around that, but naturally found my way to intermittent fasting. The more I was doing the FODMAP, the more I was, I
Yeah.
guess, listening to my body and the way it responded and finding that I'm not hungry in the mornings. I didn't want to eat
Yeah.
if I ate early because you think that's what you have to do, and maybe that works for some people, that's absolutely fine. But
Okay.
for me, if I ate because I thought I had to, I didn't feel good afterwards. But if I waited to that later window, 10 or 11 a.m. and I ate, I felt better.
So talk about FODMAP, and for those of you out there who've never heard of it, Google FODMAP diet, and that will show. So let's do a little rundown of FODMAP and what are some foods that you have to eliminate out of your diet. Like for me, it's garlic, onions, fermented foods, high sugary types of fruits, for example, high sugar foods in general. Touch upon FODMAP and maybe educate folks out there who've never heard of it.
Yeah, yeah. So FODMAP, I think it actually came out of an Australian Melbourne University. It was created at FODMAP, and it's a low fructose, low lactose, pretty much low in anything that is quite well known to increase gut sensitivity, gut reaction, fermenting of the gut, things like that. So I think it's closer to what we should be eating in general. But for people who come, I guess, from different backgrounds, different cultures who can tolerate garlic and onion and all those rich flavored foods, if you have maybe Steve, you have a fructose intolerance, which is where I started out with a fructose intolerance, something like garlic and onion has an immediate gut reaction, and
Yeah.
I think it continues to ferment in there, which is where it
Hmm.
caused the upset. Yeah.
Imagine trying to work out and dealing with
Yeah,
that. I had a
that's
client who he couldn't figure out why he couldn't get in a good workout. So I told him one day, I was like, "What are you eating?" And he told me he's like eating Chinese food every day, drenched in
oh
garlic and
god.
onion. So I told him, "Stop putting garlic and onion in your food and just eat the same Chinese food, but just don't put garlic in it." And he came back to me 2 weeks later. He's like, "Steve, I feel like 100,000% better just eliminating garlic and onion. I was like, there you go. So it's not just the foods we eat, it's also the stuff that we add to our foods that can be causing problems. So those of you out there, that's something to take a look at. So that's a great tip. And then touch on time restricted intermittent fasting. Educate people out there on what that is. We talk a lot about it on the podcast and on the forums. I have a fasting log, but touch
Yeah.
upon who are listening to this for the first time and aren't familiar with it. What would be your definition of intermittent fast and time restricted eating? Give a rundown on it.
Yeah, so my time restriction window is probably a little bit bigger than most people's just due to my evening training. So the window I'm able to eat in the evening. I know a lot of people stick to a 4 hour or 6 hour window. For me, that sounds pretty hard to eat all your calories and macros in that window anyway. But essentially, just having that restricted window of eating to get all your food in, and having more time in the morning and the evening to allow your body to do its natural kind of processing of all the foods you've given it and that restorative effect on the other side there. So, ideally, I wouldn't eat so late at say 8 p.m. having the smoothie. Unfortunately, that's just around the training. That's where it have to be. But if you could eat your last meal a little bit earlier, then you're getting or you're digesting done before you go to bed and go to sleep and let your body do the other things it needs to get to.
What do you have to say for the people out there who say, you know what, intermittent fasting, time restricted eating doesn't, it's BS because hey, if I eat all my the same amount of calories in a 16-hour window or a 12-hour window, what difference does it make? What would be your counter argument to them who say that? Maybe for people out there who are listening to this and they're like, well, I eat in a 12-hour window. I wake up at 7 a.m., I eat breakfast, and then I eat my last meal at 7. So I'm eating in a 12-hour window or 14-hour window. So what would be your
Mm.
argument to those who say, well, it's still calories in, calories out. It's the same thing. It shouldn't matter.
I mean, look, if it works for you, good for you. Um, what I think you really need to take a step back and think about is what does your body tell you versus what is maybe, how do I say,
Society,
behavioral
society
or
maybe, or yeah, the nurture.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
something
So
you and I,
some,
something you and I talked about multiple times, Steve, and I see if Panda thinks
Yeah.
this is
Well, let her
incorrect.
answer.
I'm just
Let's hear
wondering
her
about
answer.
the nature thing
Yeah.
because nature didn't allow for us to have 3 square meals a day back in the day. So, yeah. What do you think,
yeah,
Panda?
I think habit has comes into play a lot and probably more than a lot of people take the time to think about when they think about foods. And then there's a lot around the dopamine drivers for food as well. So you could
Mm.
slowly maybe become a little bit reliant on those dopamine
Yeah.
drivers and dopamine kind of reward system
Yeah.
around the food
I gotta
knowing
have my dopamine hits and then we have, and then we eat at,
yeah.
a midnight
Yeah.
snack because our ancestors, I'm sure they, walked around in the dark finding food in the middle of the night, right? You know
Yes,
what I'm saying?
exactly.
It's just hilarious. So that's good though. That's good that, go ahead. Go ahead, Panda. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So I think in taking the at least if you're keen to give it a go and take the time to try intermittent fasting, and if you do try it, give it time, give it a few weeks. Don't just give it a week or a few days and
Yeah.
be done with it. But what something I noticed over time is my relationship with food and feeling hungry changed, and that changed in two ways. Firstly, the feeling of being hungry or feeling hungry stopped driving me. And it became something that I was able to control so easily, knowing that my feeding window or my meal time being 11 and 2, I know that food is coming. So being hungry doesn't take over me in any way. And it doesn't, I
Yeah.
know a lot of people talk about that food noise as well, and I'm not saying it's not there, but having so much better control over it comes in that way. And then just all the crap falls away. There's no
Yeah.
when
You
I
don't
have that
become
eating
a slave to
consistent.
the food. What was the longest you've ever
Yeah.
fasted before? Is it just the time restricted eating on a daily, or have you done like longer fast, 24-hour, 3 days, etc.?
No, just the timed meals
Okay.
in that window. That's all I've really done.
So let's talk about the EVO family and your log. What got you to EVO? I can't remember if you talked about it a little bit on the pre-show or if it was in the pre-show. I just want to make sure that we go over that. How did you find out about the forum and what was your impressions of the forum?
Yeah, it was actually my husband who introduced me to it, and it did take me a while to commit and dive in and get onto it. I wasn't really sure about it at first, having not known a lot about it. What really got us there in the first place was we'd both tried peptides. As I said, I used it pre-operative, and because I'm really big on weighing up your own risk profile and what you're comfortable with. So when I first tried peptides, I got a script for them, a prescription, so that I could learn what the dosing is, how to administer it, and do it properly before I started to look at it, getting it elsewhere. So once I'd figured that out and I was more comfortable with the whole concept of it, then we started exploring, well, where would be a safe alternative to get that from? And my husband actually came across the forum and put me onto it as well. And what really attracted me to it was the confidence it gives you in what you're doing and the quality of the products that you're getting from people. It's really obvious how heavily vetted it is, which takes a lot of the risk component away, and something I found really beneficial there.
Okay, so you found EVO because you wanted a place where you could, find these PEDs and these peptides and these products that were safe. What are some of the other things on EVO? Is your husband, by the way, on the forum as well? Or do you know
He
less?
is, yeah. He doesn't log on the forum. He just reads
Oh,
through
okay.
a lot of the time reading through. So he was often showing me articles and showing me logs and things like that before I started my own.
So what do you think about the forum in general, the environment, and who are some of your favorite people on there who have really helped you on your log and encouraged you and given you some tips and advice?
Yeah, I really love the forum and the logs, which was really unexpected to me. I wasn't sure about it when I first heard about it, what it might look like, but it's a really amazing place with quite a mix of people. I think first going into it, I'd expected it might be people that are quite traditional bodybuilders and leaning
Yeah.
more to extremes. But once you fish around a little bit, there's a lot of people with a lot of different goals and experiences, just really willing to share what they're trying to achieve, and be quite open to the feedback, and a lot of sharing of information and good information there. So once I took the time to really look around and read through it, I almost became
Mhm.
addicted to it, to
And
finding different people and learning
yeah.
about them.
Any particular logs that you really enjoy reading on the forum?
Yeah, there's a few people I'm following a bit more closely. Alice in Ironland is one.
Yeah.
She's quite amazing. She's got a great physique there and a lot of knowledge. She's really open about sharing as well, in both like training, peptide cycles, etc. I did come across today Roid Rage wife, I think her name is.
Yep,
Hmm.
yep.
Yeah, she's a power lifter, I
Yes.
think, or a strength.
Very,
Yeah, and
very
National
she,
strong.
standard. Yeah,
She's
yeah,
one of the
yeah.
strongest women out there.
oh my God, she's incredible. Looking through her training and her results and what she can lift is just so incredible, and so awesome to see someone around of that caliber and of that standard and just openly sharing what she's doing.
Iron Rose, have you seen her?
I have seen her around. I did hear on maybe an episode you released today that you've done an interview with her, so I'm looking forward to
Yes.
hearing her podcast episode come out.
Something just from the female listeners, and for that matter, the female members on the forum, which came across in the recent shows that we've done with the ladies, is that arguably, Steve, in some ways, they think more about what they're doing, and they're more informed in that particular way than some of the guys are, because us fellas tend to
Mhm.
set a more
Yeah,
sort of
why
traditional
is
route.
that, Panda? What's your
Mm.
theory on that? Because I noticed that a lot out there. Do you
We
think that
we learned stuff. You and I learned stuff last week, Steve,
yeah.
about training
Do you,
during the menstrual
yeah.
cycle that I
So
really hadn't
we're
given much thought
yeah,
to.
not to get too deep into it, but we're also
No,
seeing a
no.
trend. I know it's in Australia and America where
Mm.
like the majority of people who are getting their degrees and going to college, it's a strong majority women. We're talking almost 70%, even 80% in some parts of America now. Do you think that men have just, kind of given up on being intellectual? Because it just seems like women like you build you an Iron Rose and some of these women that we've interviewed, the
Yeah.
knowledge is far more extensive than some of the men we've had on. No disrespect to them, But do you see that trend as well? I don't know if you have brothers or uncles or something, that you can kind of mix and match, but it just seems like the intellectual curiosity of men has really fallen behind. And it's very upsetting to me as someone who did, go and get educated and reads books and all this stuff. It's
Mm,
not, it's like it's become not cool to be smart. Does that make
yeah,
sense? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can see that trend happening as well. Um, I think I can only speak maybe more from the female perspective, but I think especially in this space, due to our lack of representation or the lack of maybe more candid talk around
mm,
training
mm,
cycles, things like that in women's area, you really have to scrape for information to find it. So I think
Yeah.
that you're already committing to take the time to hear about what people are doing, to find out how to do it, find out the dosing, and as I said before, the risk is much higher for us. So
Yeah.
finding out, well, what is that risk versus the reward I'm looking for,
That
and
might be
when to
what it is. Men are more like, fuck it. I'm just gonna like, it's like that's why
yeah.
men pay
Take more tests, use
exactly.
more growth. Yeah,
Well, it's like why men have to pay more in car insurance than women because men are bigger risk. It's like let's just inject something without even knowing how to use it,
yeah.
and women are more let's kind of learn. So that might be that's a good point.
Something else I've noticed, Steve, is that men will quite often forget to include certain pieces of information. But if you speak to a woman, you will get all of the information, whether that's diet or lifestyle or
Okay.
whatever else. Guys will
Yeah.
forget about the diet or they'll forget about
Panda, what
what
do you
they
think
do
about
in the
that
gym.
point? Do you agree with that?
Mm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. And maybe a part of that could come from a medical perspective too, in that we have to justify our symptoms and our lifestyle a lot more to be heard.
Mm.
So I think we kind of understand the importance of the holistic picture of this is everything contributing to what I've got going
Yes.
on. So you need to understand how everything plays kind of synergistically.
Gotcha. So let's finish off on a fun topic. Let's talk about you live in the southern hemisphere. It's different world, different, everything. And in your pictures, you're in the pool. It's nice and sunny. You have beautiful scenery. Talk about living in Australia. Is it a very hot place, sunny place? Is there a lot of outdoor stuff that you like to do?
Yeah, I mean it's so lucky living here. It's such a beautiful country from north, south, east, west. There's something different and beautiful everywhere. So I'm really, really fortunate living here. I'm fortunate enough to live somewhere where it's warmer and sunnier more often than not, which is really conducive to an outdoor lifestyle. Everyone here is all social catch-ups, so outdoors. Every time you're doing something's outdoors. Everyone's up at 5 a.m. when the sun
Something
comes up doing something
something that
outdoors.
Steve's touched upon is the American listeners, which is a vast majority of our audience. We have these, and myself even in the UK, we have these preconceptions. So we'll say, have you ever had one of those? I think we did a show the other day with Iron Lady where there was a snake. Was someone else, Steve? A snake in the bathroom. There
Yeah,
was a spider that bites in the
yeah.
toilet. Have you ever had to do with any of that crazy shit as well? Or is that just sort of like a trope that we get the idea about?
No, I think it's pretty normal. Maybe that's why we take it a little bit for granted, but definitely there's big spiders around. I've been fortunate enough not to have a snake in my house. Um, I actually used to live when I was younger in the tropics on a Pacific an island out there, and the insects there were 10 times worse than what you get here. They were terrifying. Things like centipedes that were,
Yeah.
a foot, 2 foot long
Yeah.
that
They
were
can they
that
can
would be
kill
on
I,
you.
I
beds
take
and
pictures in the
stuff.
summertime here, Steve. I take pictures of dragonflies, and of course, where's the world's biggest dragonfly in fucking Australia, the size of
Yeah.
your hand?
Wow. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
absolutely, man. Yeah,
Talk
big
about
Yeah,
bugs.
they'll
koala.
just be skimming on the pool while you're swimming around. It's kind of
You
beautiful.
Yeah, but talk about koalas a little bit. Are they protected? Do they just live in the trees over there? Can you go up to them and pet them on the head? What are they aggressive?
I wouldn't touch them. They're a little bit dirty. I think most of them have a strain of chlamydia, so it's really recommended that you don't touch them. As I said before, too, with the eating the eucalyptus leaves, they're pretty stoned, so they are
Oh,
just
okay.
sitting in the
So
tree.
can you like walk up to them and touch them, or do they
No,
want to
no, no,
run
no, no,
away?
no, mate. No,
No, no,
it's
no.
still a wild animal.
Huh? They
It's
get
still a wild
upset if you touch
animal.
them? Will they get upset if you touch them, or they run away, or
Yeah,
what?
they won't like it. And
Oh,
they do
really?
have
Okay.
pretty big claws. Yeah.
So are you allowed to like go up to them and mess with them, or are they protected? Because where I live, alligators, you have to avoid alligators. You're not allowed to touch alligators. You're not allowed to molest
Mm.
alligators. You're not allowed to feed alligators. None of that. Can you do that with koalas or no?
I mean, you definitely wouldn't eat them either. I'm not sure as far as what's protected here, but definitely all across Australia, I think it's a pretty common um, sentiment that we all share that we are as a country really protective over our wildlife.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
think we'd all be pretty upset if you start messing around with the animals here.
What about we've talked to some Australians about kangaroos. Have you ever hit a kangaroo while driving? Because we had a guy he hit 3 times. He ruined his
Yeah, yeah.
car.
Brand new
Yeah.
car. Brand new.
I had many, many years ago, one day I was out walking, my dog and my brother's dog, who I was looking after at the time, and I was walking past this house, which happened to be a holiday house, which meant, of course, no one was there, and there was a kangaroo in the yard, in a fence yard, stuck, and close to a highway. So I had to call wildlife rescue to come and get it. And they'd asked me to stick around, so I was waiting there with the two dogs and the kangaroo, trying to keep everyone calm. And the ranger came and said, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna need help catching this thing." I was like, "I don't know. I'm not trained in wildlife, so I've tied up the dogs to a tree, and he's told me, okay, I'm gonna spook it out your way to get out of the yard. Just block this." It was like between the garage and the house, kind of just block off that area so it can't get through, and then I can catch it. I was like, I don't really know how to do that. It's just be big, just kind of guard the area there. So if stood really tall and put my arms out and stood wide and whatever, and he's scared this kangaroo, and it's come like just charging at me, and it ended up leaping and kicking me just on the thigh. So I was thankfully okay.
Oh
And
wow.
Mm.
yeah, sprung off me and then sprinted off across the highway and towards the reserve.
Yeah.
So it
What'd you
was
do when it kicked you? Did you scream or did you just like close your eyes and hope, you know?
just hope for the
Right the fuck
best.
away.
Actually was more concerned about the two dogs I had tied up.
Yeah.
And one of them got loose and went
Oh
after
no.
it. So
Oh, lovely
it was
grief.
an
I wonder what
event.
the dogs think of kangaroos because the dogs are mostly from where mobster live. The Brits are the ones that domesticated dogs, you know. I wonder if they, even know what a kangaroo is, you know? Are they like scared of them or what?
No, I mean this my brother's dog, which went after it, definitely wasn't scared of it. I think it was quite the game going after it.
Mm.
But no, I've not seen a dog be scared of a kangaroo. Not to say that they wouldn't be.
Hmm.
So I'm just thinking, Steve, you've got coyotes in America, which are from the dog species, and in Australia they have dingoes, which are from the dog species. So there's
Yeah.
an argument to be made for primitive man, at least having
Yeah.
his animals hanging around before they become domesticated. But yeah, we're massive pet lovers here. But I
Yeah.
don't know that I'd want a giant jumping kangaroo coming towards me, no matter how big I am, because they are very
Yeah.
powerful. So yeah, there's
Is it
definitely
is it
something going
true
on
that the
there.
dingoes like grab babies from people? I thought I read a story about that or
Yeah,
heard a story.
that
Is that
one
a true
particular
story?
story is like a documentary. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a true story. It's a really devastating
Yeah.
story.
And they thought that the
Mm,
parents killed the baby, and then
mm.
they found the
Yeah, yeah,
baby's bones years later, right?
the
Yep,
mum went
yep,
to
yep.
jail for a long
Mm.
time until the case was reopened. So it was
Yeah, that's a
like
famous case. So we
all
heard
grown
about that,
up.
yeah, America, yeah. But is that
Yeah.
common where the dingoes like come up to your house and grab the baby out of your house, or?
No, no, no. And they're in really like remote areas. I think there was a case recently though on the news where someone was camping out and the dingoes came to the camping spot.
Yeah.
I
Mm.
don't think that survived, but
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what happened there.
I wonder
But
if
you
a
wouldn't
group
go
of
near them.
dingo. I wonder if a group of dingoes could grab mobster or take them, take them away and eat
I
them.
doubt it, mate.
That'd be good
Too
meat,
big.
right, mobster? You'd be good meat.
They'll be dragging me for weeks just to get me as far as
You
the
might
shops.
be part of the pack.
You never know. Panda, thank you very much for coming on today. As again, we said, part of the show listeners, we want a female perspective, and we certainly, and I think I used this phrase with someone the other day, the logical thinker coming on and having an idea of why they do what they do. And that's come across from this show today. The insight we hope that listeners will benefit from Panda's journey, from the way that Pandas think, and even the overcoming and the pre and post operation training, etc., is going to help because injuries in the sport that we do by going to the gym, in bed JJ are very, very common. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't listen and we don't pay attention to what we're doing. So hopefully, again, people will benefit from that. Again, thank you so much for coming on today, Panda. Any final thoughts before we go into the disclaimer? Any last messages to give our listeners?
I just think really if you're looking to do something, run a cycle or start something new, the forum is a great place to even ask questions and reach out. But something that I found just really helpful and beneficial in myself is figuring out what my drivers are as far as what I want to achieve and what direction I want to go in. And it's made making decisions about what's right for me and what I'm willing to try so much easier. So take that time to think about it.
We use the phrase sometimes, if you understand yourself, it becomes that much easier to motivate yourself and push yourself in particular directions, whether that's food, diet, training, whatever. Again, thank you so much for coming on today. Listeners, as always, please note we are not doctors and the opinions are ours. It is our view based on our experience and views on the topic. Our podcasts are for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment apply.